55 miles.
It's the evening of the 10th of December 2021. The skies over the southern and Midwestern United States are darkening ominously. Meteorologists are on high alert, watching radar screens that show a brewing storm system of unprecedented strength. As people go about their Friday night routines, no one realizes they're about to face one of the most catastrophic tornado outbreaks in recent history. A beast of nature is about to unleash its fury, forever changing lives and landscapes. At the heart of this disaster was a monstrous tornado that carved a path of destruction over 165 miles long. This behemoth, often referred to as the Beast, was a mile-wide vortex with winds reaching up to 190 miles per hour. Its power and longevity would leave an indelible mark on the landscape and the lives of those in its path, particularly in the town of Mayfield, Kentucky. The Rickards family, residents of western Kentucky, found themselves directly in the tornado's crosshairs. As the storm approached, their neighbor captured chilling footage of the massive funnel cloud.
It sounded like 10 trains.
In a decision that likely saved their lives, the Rickards chose to leave their seemingly indestructible brick home for a nearby church.
I guess I don't know.
Their instinct proved correct, as their house was completely destroyed by the tornado's brutal force. Hours before the tornado touched down, meteorologist Pat Spoden at the National Weather Service in Paducah, Kentucky, sensed
This is where the Mayfield Consumer Products candle factory was destroyed.
Despite having a 22-minute warning, the factory was completely flattened.
8 died, but more than 100 survived.
One survivor, Kiana Parsons Perez, captured the harrowing experience in a Facebook Live video while trapped under the rubble. She pleaded for help. Please, y'all, pray for us.
Please, y'all, pray for us. Try to get somebody to come and help us.
Later, she described the scene. I watched an interview earlier today, and the man, he was a storm chaser, and he says that it looked like a landfield. That's exactly what it looked like. The destruction in Mayfield was catastrophic. Governor Andy Beshear described the scene. The devastation is unlike anything I have seen in my life, and I have trouble putting it into words. There's not a camera lens big enough to show you the extent of the damage here in Graves County or in Kentucky.
This is Kentucky's most devastating tornado event in our history. We have lost far too many of our brothers and sisters. The damage is devastating. Entire blocks, more than one block, with nothing standing. To the people of America, there is no lens big enough to show you the extent of the damage here in Graves County or in Kentucky.
The Mayfield tornado drew comparisons to the historic tornado outbreak of 1,925. That event held the record for the longest tornado path at 219 miles and resulted in nearly 700 fatalities. Interestingly, during that era, government forecasters were prohibited from using the term tornado in their warnings, fearing it would cause panic among the public. This restriction highlights how far tornado forecasting and public communication have come in the intervening years. To understand the science behind these devastating storms, researchers like Karen Kosiba have been employing sophisticated tools such as radar trucks. These mobile units allow scientists to scan tornadoes up close, gathering crucial data on wind speeds and internal storm structures. Despite these advances, many questions about tornado formation and intensity remain unanswered. The United States experiences more tornadoes than any other country on Earth, a fact attributed to its unique geography. The impact of the Mayfield tornado was profound, with countless stories of survival and tragedy emerging in its wake. In a mobile home community, James Penley made the split-second decision to shield his son with his own body, as 18 months prior. Steve Eddy, a member of the assessment team, was shocked by its complete failure.
That's where I would have told people to go in and seek shelter.
Because it was so well built.
It was only 18 months old.
In contrast, the Mayfield tornado was on the ground for nearly 3 hours and reached EF 4 intensity with winds up to 190 miles per hour. Among the thousands, the couple who had known each other since childhood lost their home to the storm. As they sifted through the wreckage, they found unexpected solace in small discoveries. Mindy uncovered a jar of home-canned jelly, miraculously intact amidst the devastation. But it was another find that truly touched their hearts. It affected multiple states beyond Kentucky. In Edwardsville, Illinois, an Amazon warehouse suffered a partial collapse, resulting in 6 fatalities. The incident prompted a statement from Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. The news from Edwardsville is tragic. We're heartbroken over the loss of our teammates there, and our thoughts and prayers are with their families and loved ones. In Arkansas, a nursing home was struck, resulting in at least 2 fatalities. The scene was chaotic, with aides using their own bodies to shield residents from the storm's fury. These incidents underscored the wide-reaching impact of the outbreak, which affected communities across several states. The aftermath of the tornado has left communities grappling with the long process of recovery. 3 years after the event, Cassie Basham, executive director of Camp Graves, a local nonprofit working to house tornado victims, reports, "We continue doing what we're doing because people are still displaced. They are still having their homes replaced and rebuilt." Pastor Chad Lamb of Grace Life Church, which was destroyed by the twister, provided an update on the rebuilding efforts. It looked like a nuclear bomb had went off. It was just so devastating. He noted that while progress has been made, particularly on the outskirts of town with new homes and restaurants, the town center is only now beginning to see significant reconstruction. The resilience of the affected communities has been remarkable. Micah Sievers, president of the Camp Graves board, observed, "You've got people who lost everything overnight. So many people didn't let this just completely diminish their spirit. This spirit of resilience is evident in the ongoing efforts to rebuild and support those still recovering from the disaster." The Mayfield tornado of December 2021 will long be remembered as one of the most significant weather events in recent U.S. history. Its unprecedented power, unusual timing, and the scale of destruction it wrought have left an indelible mark on the communities it touched.
One farmer recalled clinging to the roots of a fallen tree as the winds tried to tear him away. When the storm passed, he stood alone, his house, his barn, his family all gone. In Indiana, another 70 people were killed, adding to the staggering toll. Only as dusk approached, nearly 4 hours after first touching down, did the tornado finally dissipate. The statistics remain almost too large to comprehend. 695 dead. Over 2,000 injured. 15,000 homes destroyed. But numbers alone cannot capture the devastation. Behind every figure was a face, a family, a story forever altered by the tri-state tornado. In Murfreesboro, one mother threw herself over her children in the cellar, trying to shield them from the collapsing house above. She lived, but her children were crushed beneath the beams. Neighbors later pulled her away as she clung to their still bodies, refusing to let go. In West Frankfort, miners rushed from underground when the storm passed, only to find their homes flattened. Without hesitation, they began digging through the wreckage of neighbors' houses, using bare hands and broken boards to reach survivors. The men who had spent their lives clawing coal from the earth now clawed for human life. In Indiana, a young boy wandered for hours in shock, clutching the severed hand of his little sister. He didn't realize she was gone. People who saw him tried to comfort him, but his vacant stare showed he was far beyond comfort. Medical facilities were completely unprepared. Hospitals filled within minutes, hallways lined with screaming patients. Doctors and nurses worked until their arms gave out. With electricity cut off, they operated by lantern light, and when morphine ran out, surgeries continued without anesthesia. Amputations, stitches, and splinting were done with whatever tools were available. One doctor recalled hearing the cries of children begging for their mothers, and the silence that followed when the realization came that their parents were gone. Another nurse described the smell of smoke and blood mixing with antiseptic, the sound of saws cutting bone echoing through the makeshift wards. Churches across Illinois and Indiana became morgues. Wooden pews were lined with the dead, bodies covered by blankets, coats, or bed sheets until relatives could identify them. Sometimes entire families were laid side by side, leaving no one to claim them. In some towns, officials posted names on chalkboards outside buildings, so survivors could search for missing loved ones. Identification was often difficult. Many were disfigured beyond recognition. Rings, watches, or scraps of clothing became the only clues. Gravediggers worked around the clock, digging long trenches when cemeteries could no longer keep pace. For every tragedy, there were also stories of improbable survival. In DeSoto, a baby was found alive beneath a pile of debris, its crib overturned, protecting it from the crushing weight of fallen beams. In Gorham, a man described being thrown nearly a quarter mile, landing in a muddy ditch that softened his fall. He staggered up with broken ribs, but alive. In Murfreesboro, a woman trapped under a collapsed store was dug out 2 days later, dehydrated but still breathing. These miracles became lifelines of hope for communities drowning in grief. They were repeated in newspapers across the nation, proof that life could endure even when everything else had been lost. The toll on children was especially horrific. Schools in Murfreesboro, West Frankfort, and DeSoto were struck while classes were in session. Entire classrooms were buried. Survivors remembered the screams of classmates as roofs caved in and walls collapsed. Teachers acted as human shields, throwing themselves over their students. Some saved lives. Others died beside the children they tried to protect. After the storm, orphaned children were left wandering streets, clutching the hands of strangers, calling for parents who would never come. Relief workers described the heartbreak of trying to comfort them, knowing their families had perished. Physical injuries healed slowly, but the psychological scars often never did. Survivors spoke of recurring nightmares, of phantom winds howling in their ears at night. Many could not stand the sound of thunder again. Some refused to rebuild in the towns where their families had been wiped out, moving away to escape memories. Others rebuilt on the same land, saying they could not abandon the grave of their loved ones. A woman from Indiana recalled, "I lived, but part of me was buried that day. You don't recover from watching your whole family vanish." Funerals stretched for weeks. In Murfreesboro, there were not enough coffins, so bodies were buried in makeshift boxes. Ministers conducted services from sunrise to sunset, sometimes for dozens of victims at a time. Despite the scale of loss, survivors leaned on one another. Neighbors shared food, strangers took in orphaned children, and towns across the Midwest sent supplies. The Red Cross coordinated relief, but it was the people themselves who did the heaviest lifting, clearing rubble, burying the dead, feeding the homeless, and consoling the broken. Walking through the storm's path was like stepping into another world. Survivors described silence, broken only by the cries of the wounded or the moans of livestock trapped beneath barns. Debris was everywhere, furniture tangled in trees, wagons wrapped around telephone poles, entire houses reduced to splinters. Personal belongings scattered the fields, family Bibles, torn photographs, wedding dresses, toys, all lying in the mud. These fragments of ordinary life became symbols of what had been lost. The statistics will always remain: 695 dead, thousands injured. But the true toll was measured in empty chairs at dinner tables, in the silence of classrooms without children, in churches missing entire congregations. Behind every number was a name. Behind every statistic, a story. The tri-state tornado was not just a natural disaster, it was a human tragedy of unfathomable scale. The tornado's winds were not the only killers. When the storm roared through towns, it ripped open gas mains, toppled lanterns, and scattered wood stoves. Fires ignited instantly. What had been a wall of wind became a furnace. In Murfreesboro, Illinois, the destruction was compounded by fire. The storm had reduced blocks to heaps of splintered wood, but within minutes, those heaps ignited. Flames leapt from house to house, fueled by broken gas lines and spilled oil lamps. Survivors, dazed and bleeding, suddenly found themselves surrounded by fire. Some tried to dig loved ones out before the flames reached them. Families clawed at the rubble with shovels, then with bare hands, splinters cutting their skin, fingernails torn. Mothers screamed the names of children. Men lifted beams with impossible strength, but the fire spread too fast. Many survivors were forced to make the most terrible choice: flee and live, or stay and die beside the trapped. One witness later recalled, "The tornado took everything. The fire took what little was left." The fire was merciless. It turned collapsed neighborhoods into open-air crematoriums. Even those who had survived the storm were swallowed by smoke and flame. In some places, entire blocks burned for days, leaving nothing but ash and scorched earth. The stench of charred wood and burned flesh hung heavy over the towns, impossible to escape. For rescue workers, the fire was an enemy as deadly as the tornado itself. Teams that rushed in with axes and wagons had to turn back. The heat was unbearable. In Murfreesboro, one Red Cross volunteer said, "We could hear voices under the rubble, but we could not reach them. The fire kept us away. Their cries stayed with me forever." The destruction left law enforcement overwhelmed. Police stations themselves had been flattened, officers killed or injured. Communication lines were down, telegraph wires snapped, roads blocked by fallen trees and wreckage. News of the disaster spread slowly, and help arrived too late for many. Into that vacuum came desperation. Survivors, hungry and homeless, searched through ruins for food and water. Others looked for valuables, taking what they could from collapsed stores and broken homes. Looting became a grim reality. People who had lost everything turned on one another. Arguments erupted in the streets over supplies. In some towns, local officials imposed martial law. Soldiers were called in to restore order, patrolling streets with rifles. Curfews were set. Looters, when caught, were publicly shamed or beaten. The chaos revealed how fragile the fabric of the community became under the disaster's weight. For those who had nothing left, the nights after the storm were the worst. Survivors camped in open fields, huddled together for warmth under blankets salvaged from ruins. Others slept in tents hastily erected by the Red Cross or in railway cars brought to shelter families. Children whimpered in the dark, terrified that the storm might return. Every gust of wind, every rumble of distant thunder sent panic through the camps. One man later said, "We did not sleep. We watched the sky. We were sure it was coming back. Those without shelter slept under the stars, exposed to cold spring nights. With food scarce, many went hungry. Relief supplies trickled in slowly, arriving by train or wagon, but not nearly enough to feed the thousands suddenly homeless. In the first days, searching for survivors consumed everyone. Families refused to give up hope. Fathers dug with bare hands, ignoring bleeding knuckles, lifting shattered beams alone until their bodies collapsed. Mothers moved rubble stone by stone, calling the names of children buried below. Some were found alive hours or even days later, pulled from pockets of air beneath collapsed buildings. These rescues sparked brief moments of hope amid despair. Crowds cheered, tears streamed, prayers were shouted to the heavens, but more often, the digging revealed only bodies. For every child found alive, dozens were recovered lifeless. Each discovery was followed by fresh grief, new funerals, longer lists of names written in chalk on boards outside churches.